Well, the conversation is brewing to another angle. And I can see a lot of interesting conversations around. And why would that not happen? Because all of you are in the same industry and there's so much to discuss. But let us give a keen hearing to the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, the upcoming panel will throw light on multiple perspectives from the points of view of our different stakeholders in the industry, which is all of you, the government, as well as the academia. We truly look forward to their insights and discussion that will undoubtedly help you to get new ideas and strategies for cultivating a culture of responsibility in our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, this panel is a power-packed panel. It's an honor, first of all, to call upon our moderator, brand consultant, our mentor, none other than Mr. Subhash Kamath. Joined along with our esteemed set of panelists, Chief Creative Officer Worldwide and Executive Chairman India of Ogilvy, Mr. Piyush Pandey. Let's give him a warm, warm round of applause. Joint Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India, Mr. Vikram Sahay, who's going to be joining us. Yes, right there. Let's give him a big, big round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Sahay, for giving us your valuable time today. The Deputy Managing Director, Pidilite Industries Limited, Mr. Sudhanshu Vats. Let's give Mr. Vats a warm round of applause as we welcome him. And the founder and Vice Chancellor, Shoolini University, we're talking about Mr. Atul Khosla. Let's give all our gentlemen, Shoolini University, which is creating magic in the hills of Himachal. And today we're going to be brewing in discussion in the magical city of Mumbai. And of course, it's our honor. Mr. Kamath, we always look forward to your discussions, your curations. Over to you.
Pleasure, pleasure. Thank you so much. When I first walked in and I saw the large audience here, I felt a huge, huge sense of pride because this idea of ASCI Academy, we were brainstorming it, I think, as an idea. It came about 18 months back. And from then to now, the launch, to see all the board members here, to see Rohit ji, it's been fantastic. It's like a dream come true. So thank you so much for all the support, everyone. It's been great. Yeah, I've got a power-packed panel here. I mean, you've heard about from the government. Rohit ji has spoken. You've heard from Rohit Java of Unilever. You heard from Manisha, and we heard from all the other experts. The idea of self-regulation and how can it begin at a time of creating it and not only policing it after it's been published. I think that's a fascinating, that's the whole idea of ASCI Academy, right? How do we help the industry get it right versus catch people later and saying you've done this wrong? And therefore, the importance of this stakeholder community that I'm having the privilege to moderate. So we have Sudhanshu representing the advertiser, the marketeer, right? So Sudhanshu, my first question is to you, actually, because ultimately it's the advertiser or marketer who owns the brand and therefore is held responsible for how the brand behaves or what it says. And you've been on so many brands in the Unilever stable, and now you handle Pidilite. And I must tell you this anecdotally. Pidilite was my first account 37 years ago when he was my boss and he wrote the line, Fevicol ka joda hai tutega nahi. Right? And since then, I mean, I'm sure all of you will agree that Fevicol and Fevikwik, etc., have been hallmarks of perhaps the best advertising India has ever seen. So you're championing those brands now, yeah? So from your perspective, and you've seen that especially in today's digital social age where everybody can comment about everything, it's very easy to not just lose time and money in trying to correct something later, but it also harms brand reputation very easily. Yeah. So what is your take from your perspective on helping the industry get it right in the first place versus correcting it later on?
No, thanks, Subhash. I think first and foremost, congratulations on the launch of ASCI Academy. Congratulations, Manisha, Team ASCI. Very well done. It's been a wonderful event up to now. And good evening to all my you ladies and gentlemen, many of my friends here. I can see as I keep looking around, there are so many people I have interacted with. So thank you, Subhash. I think thank you for giving me this opportunity to be on this panel. Coming to your question, and I think, you rightly spoke about, so my Unilever days, then in between almost a decade with media, with brands like MTV and Colors, and particularly MTV. So, where you have to be on the edge, because otherwise you're not the brand, but you've got to be responsible as well. And now Pidilite you spoke about. So I think so I think being responsible as a brand is extremely important. And my personal view also, as Rohit was talking in his inaugural address, keynote address, I think, I've had the privilege of going to the school, marketing and advertising school called Hindustan Lever, now Hindustan Unilever. I think you were trained to be responsible. In those days, you had the time and the luxury, and there were fewer companies, there were fewer brands, arguably, and therefore it was easier. I think today it's important that we recognize that fact, because brands ultimately are built responsibly. Which doesn't mean that you don't have to be creative. And Piyush is on the panel, and I think you have to be creative. Which doesn't mean that you will not stretch the envelope. You have to stretch the envelope. Brands have a role to stretch the envelope. Brands have a role to show a mirror to the society. We should not mistake that. It is not about being compliant and very sort of, it is, so you have to be legally compliant, but you have to be responsible. And therefore managing this, Subhash, becomes very, very important. And I think brand reputations can be very easily lost and are built over years, if not decades. And if you're not responsible, you throw away, something which has been built in a big way. So I can't undermine or sort of, underline the responsibility aspect of building brands. And I think that's very, very important. And therefore, all future marketers, future advertisers need to understand that well. And ASCI Academy fits in wonderfully there.
You touched upon a very important point, Sudhanshu. At Unilever, because of Unilever being such a school for marketing, you had to undergo a lot of training from a young brand manager, etc. So you had processes in place. How many marketing organizations train their people about responsibility and ethics? Versus, I've been through a lot of marketing inductions. Young brand managers get inducted onto their brands. They have a very robust induction program. But this aspect of what's right and what's wrong going forward, how many organizations actually have training in place? From that perspective, what role can ASCI Academy play?
So ASCI Academy, and perfectly segues into what I was saying. I think ASCI Academy fits in beautifully to do this on scale, what one organization could do for that organization at that point in time. What you can now do is bring in the best practice, share that with everyone, put it online, which Manisha spoke about. That is one aspect. But I think as she and her team have also been demonstrating, go across and be able to sort of play that role. And it's always, they say vis-a-vis health and medicine as well, prevention is better than cure. And I think Shri Rohit Singh spoke about it as well. I think if we can ensure that we make more and more responsible advertising, as large a country as India is, are we going to be 100% there? No. But can we try and get there to sort of make sure that, we make more and more of this? That's important. And therefore, go to different organizations, and organizations are mushrooming by the day now. You can start, so therefore brands are mushrooming by the day as we speak, and particularly in certain segments and so on and so forth. So I think, how do we educate that? And the second element of ASCI Academy, which I absolutely loved, Subhash, is getting all the stakeholders in place. So I think, that's the space. I think you also, Rohit Singh again spoke about the 3 C's. So I think, how do you get all the stakeholders in place? And I think ASCI has that unique advantage to be able to get all the stakeholders in place as well. And I think that's the wonderful piece. And I think that's another key role which ASCI Academy can and will play. I'm very confident.
So let me segue from the advertiser to his partner, the creative person, right? It's the advertiser and the creative partner who actually create brands together. And Piyush has done amazing work for Pidilite and so many other brands that we'll spend the entire evening making the list of those. But Piyush, from after you've heard Sudhanshu, from an advertising agency perspective, and you have so many young account men, planners, creative people coming into your system every day, right? This area of what is responsible advertising, what is right, what is wrong, how do you institutionalize that at Ogilvy, for example?
To be very honest, there's no formal scheme. So what happens, and I would like to ask Sudhanshu about it, that even in Unilever, you didn't have a formal thing of doing it. You had a system. You had a system which taught you that be responsible. Similarly, it's the way out here. And that's what I like about what you're doing, that you are trying to make responsibility into table stakes. It has to be table stakes. It has to be the starting point. I go back to what you said about David Ogilvy. He said that any stuff that you would like your family to see or not like them to see, that should be a part of our culture. What I would like to say to you as a big stalwart of ASCI is that don't make it too serious. Don't make it too serious. Balance it out. So I told you that this is out of regulation, but look, some wonderful work that's been done within regulations. Balance it out. Otherwise, what will happen is it happened to me at one of the IIMs. I won't name which one, where I was speaking to the faculty. And I said to them, listen, teach them all that you're teaching them, but teach them some humanity. Otherwise, it takes me 3 years to make them human again after they come from you. And Mr. Bachchan was sitting next to me, Piyush, तुम ज़्यादा तो नहीं बोल गए? मैंने आज तो मौका मिला तो बोलने का बोल दिया. So keep the balance. So a lot has been said about creativity by many of the speakers today, but balance it out, Subhash. If you don't balance it out, you will get people who are half the times looking at, यार correct है कि नहीं है, यार इसमें legal है कि नहीं है. Train them such कि वो it's like breathing. When you're writing creatively, you're breathing and saying, यार ये correct नहीं है. यार ये तो मैं अपनी mother को नहीं दिखा सकता हूँ. ये तो मेरी sister को अच्छा नहीं लगेगा. Let it be. If you go too much into analyzing everything, you will not get creative work. And as Rohit was saying, that he used to look forward to seeing ads when the advertising, when the content was not good. This time I saw EPL, I stopped seeing cricket because advertising was so bad. So I think somewhere down the line, we have to find that balance. I don't want anyone to be incorrect. I don't want this industry to get a bad name. I don't want my ad to be pulled out because I want my ad to run. I want somebody to say, यार 4 महीने से देख रहा हूँ बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है. I don't want it stopped. So that's the culture we must try and inculcate. Get creative people to speak to at your academy and balance it out. That you can't do without being correct. But there are beautiful ways of playing a reverse sweep, which is within the rules. So that's what I would suggest.
Piyush, one more question to add to this, what you said. In the digital and social world, and a lot of money is being spent on social campaigns where brand messages are put on and removed within 2 hours, 3 hours, right?
And they go into something called performance marketing, as if these guys are not performing.
But I'll tell you where the problem is. I mean, we've been analyzing this at ASCI for a long time.
It's difficult.
Yeah, now you can't have the process of correcting social media ads. By the time you started the correction,
correct 10 of them and go drastic. Teach the others a lesson, because going one by one will drive you mad.
no. So what our point is that more than policing it later, I think training them to get it right becomes even more important in a social media world.
I agree.
You know?
It's like, when you're bringing a child up, first you try and teach him ka, kha, ga, ga, or ABCD or whatever. You have to get the child to understand those little alphabets. And then you start singing stories to the child which he remembers. That's the creativity. So I think you have to take him through the ABCD before he starts singing and understands ABCD right through and remembers that he can't get it wrong. So I think that's the way to go about it. That's what I feel.
Let me move to my left. Mr. Vikram Sahay, pleasure to have you. Glad you could make it finally, despite Bombay traffic. Yeah. So you heard from the advertiser and from the creative side, which really forms the core of our advertising creation ecosystem. And you've been a great supporter and friend of ASCI over the years, because from your perspective as well, it is critical to make sure that people stay on the right path. How do you see the balance, and how do you see asking adding value to consumer right protection?
Thank you, Subhash, and let me at the outset congratulate ASCI and the ASCI Academy concept. I think a few months back when we came to know about it in the ministry, in the government, we were wholeheartedly there to support it. And that is how we are here. And I'm really privileged to speak before my senior, Mr. Rohit Singh, Secretary, Ministry of Consumer Affairs. He himself has been, for the last more than a year, being a very, very dynamic officer and trying to look at the pros and cons of what can be and what cannot be in terms of what you call misleading ads. But having said that, we all understand and we all appreciate people of the creativity of genius of on the panel, of the lot of hard work which goes around in creating an ad and trying to make it unique in the minds of a customer. And that is there is all the idea about having a product or a service being sold, trying to make it unique. And that is, there are various creative ways to make it unique. And we have been in the government, been quite supportive of the entire self-regulating mechanism which ASCI has developed. In fact, the cable television rules came much later than the self-regulating codes of ASCI, and we have been there supporting it. And this new jump of the ASCI Academy is something very, very welcome. But having said that, I think it's very important that, as Mr. Piyush ji said, we need to tell people or those who are in the corporate, not only in places like Bombay, Delhi, Chennai, but also in the smaller places, as to what are the norms which have to be followed in general terms, and that is expressed in the guidelines so beautifully taken out under the Consumer Protection Act, under the CTN Act. So these are broad do's and don'ts. These broad and do's and don'ts are, in fact, they're trying to reflect what is something what we call as responsible advertising. So it is nothing, it may be legal, but finally it is all about responsible content making. And as long as that responsible content making is understood by the large section of the people who are into corporates, into making ads, I think that serves the purpose, and that will ensure that whatever ads coming to the people, because finally the consumer is the person who's consuming the ad. He's the person who's trying to make out as the sense as to what this product is all about, good, bad, ugly. And he then takes an informed decision or a choice that, okay, I'll go for this product, I'll go for this service, I'll go to this educational institution, I'll go to this medicine center, whatever. So for him to make an informed decision, we also need to give him the right information. And that is the real responsible advertising we're looking at. So I think the self-regulating and the role which ASCI is playing is very, very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Vikram. Let me now bring in our last panelist and the last stakeholder, really, because Atul represents the education sector. And we felt it was a very important part of ASCI Academy's vision to include the academia, because that's where future creative, future brand managers are born. Yeah. Piyush has already spoken about his example of IIM. So here's hoping that we can bring even better thinkers into the system. But Atul, from your perspective, do you think it's too early for us to look at, I mean, as it is, we've got so many people in the industry to reach out to and train and help. Do you think, are we being too ambitious, even looking at students who one day will become brand managers? Or how do you think they would accept the idea of responsibility and ethics in advertising and marketing from us?
I think before I sort of answer your question, I'd like to thank ASCI for bringing in academia, because many times in our dialogue, academia is lost. You know, we keep talking about industry academia relationships, it's everywhere, but honestly, it's broken. So thank you for trying to bring the Fevicol in. Piyush, you spoke about culture. And if you have to think about the way what a university or an institute does, it's really giving the opportunity to provide a risk-free environment to go out and experiment. And I think by bringing in the type of things we're talking about today, I think it'll be absolutely phenomenal for students who are budding marketeers to go out and experiment, go out and build advertisements, for example, or become influencers in an environment where they can experiment with. And ASCI can probably give them inputs whether they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and they can actually become, rather than go to Unilever and become great advertisers or marketeers, they can actually learn in the university itself. I think the last thing I'd like to say is it's not just about marketeers, but also reaching out to faculty, which finally are influencers. We are influencers as academia. Reaching out to students beyond students studying marketing today. When I see students getting into marketing jobs, the roles are blurring. You've got journalism students, English students getting into digital marketing and influencer marketing, for example. And finally, it's actually going to school students. So as Shoolini, I've promised Manisha that, we'll actually go and touch the schools, because that's really where the minds have to be changed. So I'm going to encourage ASCI to do 2-3 things. Sorry, I'm going to be a little provocative here. Don't limit yourself to just doing certificate programs. My dream for you would be that think about an ASCI university. So I'm going to leave a thought for you. 3 years down the line, when we are sitting over here, there is an ASCI university sitting in Bombay, and it should be sitting next to the Unilever office, or, in the middle of VKC.
That's a good ambition to have. Very good ambition to have. Yeah. The question I had, therefore, is if Piyush, from a training perspective, would I'm sure you encourage a lot of your seniors to go to the academies and speak to universities.
I'd love to go to the academy first and see, are they teaching ABCDs or singing ABCD in a song? We don't want a scenario. It's not a police academy. We want a scenario where you teach your children. You can argue with your neighbor, but you can't throw a stone in his house. You can play with your neighbor, but you can't give gali to his mother. It's a balance. It's a balance. Today I'm very happy that with this gathering. I remember when I was in my early years, if we got a letter from ASCI, we said, ASCI, तैसे साला कुछ ना कुछ गड़बड़ कर रहा है. Today, you're such fantastic government officials who are trying to make relationship with you. There's so many people in this room in an ASCI meeting. That means the environment is right. Let's put it right together in a fair balance of getting it right and getting it beautiful. That's all I want to say.
I think I can't think of a better way to end this session than that, right? So while we will train, while we will educate, let's get the balance right. Let's make sure that creativity remains creative. Let's not take it away with too much analysis. But at the same time, let's help people develop a conscience. And from that, we'll produce actually what is a responsible work, right? I shall end the panel here. A very, very warm round of applause for an amazing bunch of people to talk to.
Thank you, Subhash, and thank you for all your efforts of making this happen.
Thank you, Subhash. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Big, big round of applause for all our panelists. May we request you to please be in the center and let us have this historic moment. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a big, big round of applause to all our eminent panelists present here today. We learned so much from them. That was indeed a wonderful discussion that allows us to understand not just the challenges, but also the opportunities as we embark on the journey of ASCI Academy.